Okay, so I'm going to start this. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Lori Lancaster, and I'm the membership coordinator at the Oregon Science Teachers Association. I also happen to be a veteran partner of the Partners in Science program, along with a couple of other people here. And so I've gathered you all here together to hear about this amazing professional development opportunity. Nothing like you'll ever get from your school. It really, you put your scientist hat on, and you get to actually be part of a scientific community. And it is amazing how experiencing it helps you to really provide your students with more of an authentic experience. Part of the purpose of it is to be able to transfer some of that authentic science research thinking, scientific thinking into your classroom. And so I'd like to introduce Kim Newman, who is the program manager for the Partners in Science program at the Murdock Trust. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Kim.
Well, thank you, Lori.
Yeah.
So you guys, I am excited about sharing about this opportunity with you. And I was a high school science teacher for 20 years and also was a Partners in Science grant recipient in 2010. And just grateful for this opportunity to share a little bit more about this program. And as Lori said, we have a few veterans and current partners on here today that can also talk about their experience. But first, before we get going, I want you to think back to your high school days. And for me, you know, I'm 57, so that was several years ago, but I can think back, my biology teacher, she gave us a textbook and we answer questions in the end of the chapter. And my chemistry teacher, Mr. Soloff, he was so awesome. He'd bounce around the room like he was a molecule getting heated up. And so he just showed us how heat energy was transferred to this kinetic energy. So I love Mr. Soloff, but like myself and Mr. Soloff, we had never been in a science lab before as a teacher. And it was just pretty cool to have this experience in Partners in Science to actually get into a lab to experience what science is really like with scientists in local universities. And it really did change the way that I taught. So I wanted to share with you really some specifics about the program. We'll share a short video. This will take like 15 minutes. And then at the end, we'll have some questions. So, oh yeah, and thank you. If you have questions, just pop up, but we'll have lots of time for questions at the end. Okay, so let's just jump right here. Okay, do you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So Partners in Science offers $19,000 grants for high school science teachers to do research alongside a university scientist for 2 summers. And in addition to the lab experience, we at the Murdock Charitable Trust, we offer professional development for teachers, and you're going to hear about that more in a little bit. But the purpose of the professional development and the program is just to scaffold on how do you translate that research experience into a change in classroom practices. In this program, it helps teachers gain our confidence, our skill, credibility to inspire students to think intelligently, creatively, even logically most of the time. And so we've been around for quite a while, since 1990. So this is our 32nd year. And we have engaged with over 300 scientists across the Pacific Northwest. So this particular group is just focused in Oregon. In Oregon, we have a ton of universities that we work with, and we've had over 500 teachers in the program. And the trust has granted more than $13 million specifically to invest in teachers like yourself. And so I want you to think about that. How often are you guys really invested in? And I remember feeling that as a teacher, that you're always so busy and you give so much, especially now during COVID, or this, we're at the end of the pandemic. But how are you really valued? And this is a program that will show value and invest in you as a teacher. So I want to take just about 6 minutes. We're going to show this video of how programs impacted one particular school district in Idaho. And just so you know, if you do decide you're interested in this program, you're not competing against other teachers. We take as many qualified applicants as we can. So if you have everybody from your science department that wants to do it, great. Okay.
Every year there seems like there's a fire up here at some point. And then we're always out here planting sagebrush because it doesn't come back very fast on its own. I think it's like 25 years before they get to be really big sagebrush. I went to a conference, Partners in Science conference one year, and I heard some of the research that other teachers were doing with mentors. And I thought, it's time maybe I learn how to be a scientist, because I know a lot about being a science teacher, but had been out of the scientist part of it for a while.
Partners in Science is a partnership between high school science teachers
Or middle school sometimes.
and a research mentor, somebody in a research facility that is doing science.
So there's an opportunity for them to do research, learn some of those practices, and then bring those back to the classroom.
If you're trying to teach science students or high school students how to be researchers or scientists, if you've had an experience doing research, you can be that much better a teacher. So I think that's the key to the whole program.
I'm Sandra Gully. I teach sophomore chemistry at Renaissance High School in the West Ada School District, and I have been teaching science for, this will be my 19th year.
My name is Gina Lockwood, and I teach at Bora High School in Boise, Idaho. I teach AP Environmental Science and non-AP Environmental Science. Personally, I had been out of a research setting for over 20 years, and I wanted to see how science was being done and how it had changed, and it has. I mean, we have drone technology, we have 3D printers now. The things that we can do out in the field are changing so quickly that I wanted to bring that to my students to make sure that they were learning cutting-edge science.
This is my second summer in it. The first year you're a partner, you do research, which was a lot of learning techniques last summer. So this summer, just continue with the same research.
Sandra comes with a background in chemistry. We're actually a biology lab, but luckily she did major in biology as an undergrad, so it wasn't too foreign to her. But to watch her progress in terms of her ability to speak about research is amazing.
My teaching style was basically step-by-step procedures. Kids still were doing investigations, but I think I was always afraid to just let them go with it and let them figure it out on their own.
Partners in Science follows this model. It's called Think Like a Scientist. I always did that before, but I do it more with a purpose now. I have specific vocabulary I use all the time. We set up our journals in a very specific manner. I have them coming up with questions to answer rather than me spoon feeding it all to them.
What I learned from the model that helped me be a better teacher in that regard is, let's use some inquiry and let's have students do a little bit of background research and then let them tinker around with their design and ask some questions and keep going back to that drawing board so they can learn the process of science and not so much what's going to come out of it, but just learn the process and really have fun while they're doing it as well.
We're constantly doing different things. We're not just sitting there opening up a textbook and looking through and reading about it and taking a quiz on it. We're very hands-on.
Getting the students out in the field, I mean, they are really doing what scientists are doing. I mean, they're doing all those skills of analyzing, observing, collecting data, communicating that data.
You see what's happening, you get it. It's not just you see a picture and you kind of get it. You see it actually happening.
One thing I've noticed with the students from teachers that have gone through Partners in Science is they have excelled in our science classes. We have quite a few AP classes and a lot of different variety of classes, and those kids are now taking more of those than ever before in our district, and that's pretty exciting for me.
If the world was perfect, all my students would end up in some kind of science field.
I just fell in love after our first field trip. We went to the watershed and we got to do testing above and below the effluent pipe. And so that's what I want to go into now, so I'm really glad I took this class.
If they're excited about science, likely they'll continue that on in college.
We can also see that these high school teachers are able to write to Murdock for equipment grants.
So when they were able to spend $5,000 to $7,000 on equipment that they can use teachers in their classroom. That is not just helping the teachers in the classroom, it helps our teachers district-wide, because we do some professional development opportunities where we'll all come to Gina's classroom and say, hey, show us some of these things you're doing with sagebrush.
So they can actually be planning during the summer experiments they want their students to be doing with equipment that the school would never even have if it weren't for the Murdock Partners in Science grant.
This program has given us money for equipment, allowed us for professional development for other teachers, and again, excites students in science.
I wish that every science teacher had this great opportunity, because then we'd all be thinking on the same plane.
If you need a boost, if you need to learn more about science, this is the place to go.
For me, I can't see why you wouldn't want to have a high school teacher working in your lab. You have the mature person that you're teaching, but they can also be teaching you and your students things that you didn't know about.
It's been a very rich experience for me that's been life-changing for my career.
That's amazing when you think about the impact that this program can have. And I'm not bragging about it because I didn't create it, but I just run it now. So how does this program work? And I have a few of our past partners are going to share a little bit about this. But first, I'll just tell you, it is a 2-summer commitment. We make it, it's rolling application. So you apply every year, December 1st for the one time that you do it for the 2 summers. I just rambled. Sorry about that. But we do this, it's a 2-summer commitment, full-time for 7 to 8 weeks with a research mentor. And you would need to make that relationships, and we are more than happy to help you do that. Okay, so how it works. So Ty Quirk, one of our past partners and current Oregon coach, is going to talk to you a little bit about the August regional conference.
So your summer research is purely in a laboratory working with PI, and you'll be assigned a coach, and I currently have that position, and I cover Southern Washington and Oregon, and then there are coaches in other states that mentor their partners as well. And so during August, we pull all first-year partners into. We have them come to Vancouver, Washington, and we run a 3.5-day workshop with you that teaches you how to take your research and actually implement it into your classroom. And so we do a full set of professional development that allows you to scaffold and create the I wouldn't say, the framework of how to bring this back and introduce it to your students and have it build within your classroom. And that's the really big piece to it, where students are going to have the effect, is how do you transition from your experience of, learning in the classroom to then being able to transition it to give that opportunity for students. As a teacher, it was just like this eye-opening experience to go into a lab and feel inundated and not know what I was doing. And so to come back to August conference and meet with all of these other teachers that had that same experience, it gave you this foundation of starting connections that you could, become content mentors or content groups that shared ideas and that sort of thing. So it's super incredible as far as the partnership. The August conference for first years is 3.5 days, and we go through the model with you, start to finish. And then the second couple of days, we bring in the second years, and we focus more on modeling workshops and ways of introducing the lab into the classroom. And so we do more hands-on work as far as introducing labs and giving you actual documents that you can take back to your classroom and instantly implement into your classroom. We work on all of the work that you need for the January conference. So we provide support for all of that work, and Lori's going to talk about that in a second. And you just get a chance to meet with your cohort and form these phenomenal relationships. And we spoil you very, very, very much And everything is just really professional and top notch. So there you go.
Mhm. Thank you, Ty. And everything is paid for by the trust. So nothing comes out of your pocket. So we pay for your travel, hotel, food, conference, everything. And then the grant covers the January conference. So Lori, can you talk to us about the national conference?
I'd love to. The national conference is held in San Diego over the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday in January. Nice place to go in January, let me tell you. But anyway, so again, like Kim said, your lodging and meals are all included, and the grant funds funds the travel for you and your mentor. You can bring in one adult guest. You'll have to pay a nominal fee for that and pay for their own transportation down there, but it's a great opportunity where you get to network with all of these people that you were working with over the summer, but then it expands into other places. There are programs all over the United States doing similar things, and they all gather in San Diego at this national conference. And so you'll be able to see people and see research being done by teachers from other places in the country. So again, you have your first year partners are going to be providing poster presentations of their research that they've done so far, and that's usually done during the reception process, or the reception prior to the banquet, where we get to have nice beverages and we walk around and we talk to everybody and get to look at all the posters and ask questions of the first year partners. The second year partners get to do an oral presentation, and that's done as a part of a process during one of the 2 days. And so the poster presentation and the oral presentation are very similar to, are essentially what would happen at a normal scientific conference. So you're essentially a teacher researcher. So that's what you do. And then we have a banquet and evening address that is done by renowned scientists with questions and answers afterwards. There's offsite tours of different research facilities around the San Diego area, where you get to talk to research scientists and engineers about what's going on in their facilities. And then there's also workshops being presented by your colleagues who've been through the program and have implemented their research into their classroom, somehow transferred their research into their classroom, and are going to provide you with how they did that and some resources to be able to do it on your own, just like what's going on with Ty in the August conference, to help you transfer that into your classroom. And that's the biggest takeaway right there.
Thank you. Just to give you kind of a size, an idea of the scale too. So we take, as I said earlier, anybody who's qualified, we would make a grant to. But it ends up being about 20 to 30 teachers every year. And so you'd have kind of a small cohort that you would get to know quite well. So a little bit just about the grant itself. So it's a $19,000 grant that is made directly to the university that you would be partnering with. You do get paid, so you get what's called a stipend, $6,500 a summer. We also included that about $3,000 for lab fees, and that's for the university researcher to help pay for the supplies that you will be using. We also provide, do we have a question? Sorry. $1,000 of professional development, $500 each year. You can combine that and save it and go to a nice conference. And then we provide travel funds, as Lori mentioned, to get you and your mentor to San Diego. And usually there's money left over from that. And then any money that's left over in your grant, you can use for supplies for your classroom or professional development. And so how in the world do you apply? Well, first, you probably need to go to our website, and we have lots of information there. We have lab project ideas that university researchers have already submitted. You would just need to find a researcher near you, and we can help you with that. Your coach, so Ty, has a lot of resources, or you can contact me and I can help you connect with somebody to help you find somebody in your area, kind of an area that you're interested in teaching. So chemistry, physics, biology, earth science, even sometimes engineering if it's a project an actual research project. Applications due December 1st. It does take some time to do because it requires reference letters and things like that and a connection with your researcher. So make sure that you give yourself time for that. I want to talk a little bit about the impact of the program. And Alfonso, I'm going to put you on the spot in a minute. Alfonso is on this call today, and he is an Einstein Fellow, and he's in DC for the year. And I'm going to have him talk to you in just a sec on the impact that the program's had on him, because he just finished the program this last summer. But the first thing that I wanted to share with you a little bit is, so we've been kind of trying to track the impact of the program on teachers and then the change in teaching practices. And the first is really, it's going to change the way that you feel as a teacher. Our research shows that it actually changes the way that teachers perceive themselves. We start to see ourselves more as scientists, as teacher researchers, and that's how we refer to you. Instead of just a teacher, which you should never say just a teacher, but it does change the way you perceive yourself. And Alfonso, are you okay? Can you jump in right now and just tell us a little bit about how the programs have impacted you?
Yeah, so it does give you a very good insight into what the lab experience is like. Sometimes when you go through college classes, you don't get to experience the research. Even if you major in biology, this was the first 2 summers that I really spent doing a long research project. You know, it was 2 summers and I was working on the same project. I was lucky enough to work at the Primate Research Center and work on multiple sclerosis. And so it does, like I said, you know, you get to see what lab meetings are like. I learned a lot about the language that is used by scientists. And it does give you that sense of what your students get to experience when they first walk into a science room. So that is also very important, because you're walking in and getting to feel like what your students might feel when they walk into a science classroom for the first time. Is the way you walk into a lab and do research projects for the first time. And then once you start working through these projects, you kind of see the time scale is very different in the way we do science in the classroom than the way science happens in the real world. So that time scale is very important as you mentor students in long-term research projects. So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of perspective.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. And it's really fun. You feel like a kid in a candy shop when you learn about this science. But Alfonso's right, it's hard at first. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed with all the terminology. But you start figuring it out. Some other things, so thank you, Alfonso. Other things that teachers that have gone through the program have said about how the program's impacted them is, first, that it has allowed them to change their labs from, which are what we call cookbook labs, where you tell the kids the procedures, to more inquiry-based, where students are asking questions. You as a teacher become more confident in taking risks, because you see, as Alfonso said, science is at a different pace and there's so many like unknowns. And so you kind of learn to be okay with the unknowns and asking lots of questions. And then Cheryl, one of the mentors on the video, she talked a little bit about the supplemental grants. So after you finish our grant for the 2 summers, you're eligible to apply for a supplemental grant. And that is a $12,000 grant. $10,000 is for equipment for your classroom. It's higher than what she said because it's been upped. And $2,000 is for 2 more years at the January conference. And so an amazing opportunity for you to bring some quality equipment to your high school. A couple anecdotal pieces. This is Cheryl York, who talked about, and she just loved having a mature individual in her lab. It's amazing how much you will fit in and really enjoy the experience, and they will truly enjoy you as well, even though you come in with not the experience that they have. And then Dr. Henry Grabansky from OHSU said he just loved the interaction we gained with the teacher and ultimately with their students. It's the ability to kind of share your daily work, the ups and downs, and the sacrifices that they get to share with you. And so finally, we shared this in the video, but just the impact that you can have. So if we say 25 people get accepted into the program this next year, and you have 150 students a year, that's almost 4,000 students a year that are impacted by these teachers. And over 10 years, that's almost 40,000 students. That's a huge impact that you as part of cohort can have. I'm sure you're already great teachers. That's why you're even in on this call. So I'm going to stop sharing and give you guys some time just to answer or ask any questions. But you guys have been asking lots on the chat box, so thank you for answering those. But any other questions on kind of how it works or just
I just
curiosity?
wanted to say one thing
questions?
that's been kind of coming up is, and that is, yes, it's 7 to 8 weeks, but the schedule is not anything like what you experience at a school year. There are times, there's sometimes a little wait time when you're doing research because you have to let things cook, so to speak, and then there's while there's that uncomfortableness, again, being okay with uncertainty, because that's what science is, really helps you be able to hold the space for your students to be able to be uncomfortable, because you have to be. You just have to, in order to be able to really dig into a question and see if you can answer it or not. So don't let that 7 to 8 weeks, I know it says full-time, but it's not anything like, and it's, again, it's more intellectually stimulating for you, because this is a professional development experience that you will be able to take back with you.
Oh, and you do get lots of professional development credits, just so you know, that's included.
And attending the conference is great learning experience, or both the August conference and the January conference. You get to learn so much from other projects, other colleagues, and what their research was, and how they're turning it into maybe classroom activities. So it's not just you learning from one project, it's on one scientist, but you also get to benefit from the cohort.
And it's ongoing. You have these ongoing relationships. So once you're a partner, you are forever a partner. You become a veteran. But Bernie was a partner many, many moons ago. He's up here as a chemistry teacher from years ago. Bernie, when were you in the program?
94. I was there with Lori at Reed College. And one of the neat things about that was that we could take kids over to see that lab that we were working in. And I still have colleagues and still have that connection with Reed College. I almost interrupted you with applause that's saying that the mentors don't get paid. The mentors don't get paid, but Murdock is now getting money to the university to pay for the equipment that the participants are doing. But the mentors get an association with that Murdock Trust, which is invaluable, and they really appreciate that. So it's a good program.
It's some professional development that you won't get through your school district. You really won't.
Yeah, it's seriously, it's the best. And you just have to try it for yourself. But I promise you, it really is the best. But and that sounds like so arrogant, but I'm really not. Actually, I don't even run the conferences. So it's these guys are like Ty and the coaches, those guys run it. I mean, I help organize things for the national conference, but any other questions? So out of respect for you guys, oh, go ahead.
I have one thing that Alfonso didn't say about that conference down in San Diego. The speakers that the Research Corp and that the Murdock Trust brings in are top of the line. We heard Shoemaker and his wife when that comet was discovered, the Shoemaker comet. We heard Dr. Leroy Hood talk about the Human Genome Project just before or when that genome thing was completed. So that the people that they bring in, you get treated by like professional doctors, lawyers at a first-rate hotel. That is a high point in your anybody's life.
Oh, and you get your own room, by the way.
Yeah, and we need to talk about rural teachers, because we love teachers. We know you need this.
So let's talk about that. So if you have, and then we'll talk about the middle school teachers. So rural schools, right, are the most difficult, but yet to do this program, but we can figure it out. We just have to be creative. And so if you could find a researcher, and we can help you, that maybe is willing to, some people actually will use some of their money and go live like on campus for a couple days. You could do something like that, do some remote work and then some in the lab, hands-on lab work. We just have to be creative because we really want to get this to rural teachers, because I think you guys are the most isolated of all groups.
Right.
And so
Extensions, but I'm going to say extension services are often in more rural areas that might be more accessible to you.
And the forestry or Oregon Fish and Wildlife, things like that, you can also use researchers there. So,
and sometimes while the professor might be in Portland or the research might be in Portland, their research is at the coast. So you might want to look for somebody that does research, not necessarily in that location, but in the location of the university, but where the research is located.
Yeah, really good point, Alfonso.
There's a wetland and aquatic research center located in that we could look at. So lots of places.
Middle school teachers. So the answer is, I'm pretty confident that that will be true in the future. Currently, we are accepting applications for middle school teachers as a pilot. And so if you were interested and you have a pretty solid science background, then please do apply. Or just reach out to me and just talk to me. But yes, if you have a pretty solid science background, yes, absolutely apply. We have about 2 or 3 middle school teachers right now. So middle school teachers need to have a degree in one of the natural science that you're going to probably be teaching in. And if you don't have that, you need to have a lot of professional development or something to support that you have that background knowledge. Would interdisciplinary arts and science qualify for a middle school teacher or high school? So I had a Bachelor of Arts in biology, which sounds really strange, but it was an interdisciplinary degree, and I qualified. And so yes, as long as you have the science courses to support you jumping into a lab. Of course, you're not going to know what the lab's doing. You still have to learn no matter what your background is. And so it's a big growing experience. Any other questions? Gosh, if you guys all applied, and then we're going to do this in every state, we have a few more other gatherings, we'd have a nice turnout. And if you can't apply this year, you can always do it another year. You know, it took me a couple years.
Okay.
How do I find a researcher? On our website, it's right here. We have some research options already available, but you can also go to your local university website or some of these other science places that we're talking about, and just look up the research that's being done there. Find the researcher, and then you literally contact them and say, "Hi, I am Stacy from Mute." I said it wrong, but I'm Stacy, and I've heard about this program called Partners in Science. And so this actually meets their community outreach need for the National Science Foundation grants. And so that's really important for you to know that. So this is not them just doing good for you. It meets their need as well. Community college, as long as they have we used to ask that they have a PhD, but if they have a master's and they are doing research, then you can absolutely work with them. But they need to be doing research and hopefully being published is helpful.
And Kim, you were spot on with your comment about colleges needing to have that community outreach. That was the University of Portland. With Angela leaving, that college needs to have others coming in. So that's why we went to the biology department. So
awesome.
Talk to those people.
Yeah. So again, the researcher needs to have grant funded research along with some publications that they're shipping. They need to be actively researching, and those are the 2 things that the applications they look at during the application readings.
Now, So on our website, we have a rubric. We created one for you. Isn't that lovely? Because you guys know rubrics. And so you can see kind of what we look for. Also, just be aware though, if you're in a rural area or if you serve at a very underserved school, if you don't have some of these boxes checked, it's weighted. And so you don't have to have every single thing, but you definitely have to have a researcher to work with.
I just put
Anything
the
else?
research, I put the instructions for application, which includes the rubric. So
Okay.
if you're interested in seeing that.
And please feel free to reach out. I'll put my email here. Please feel free to reach out to me. And then you guys have Lori, but also Ty would be your coach. And so any of us will be fine. So Bernie?
I have to put a plug in for October 8th. We're having an OSTA conference at Ridgeview High School in Redmond. Lori is going to be there. She's going to be sitting at a table with the Murdock exhibit.
Yeah.
She'll be there all day to talk to people. The OSTA has grants that they give out through the DIAC program for inquiry science, and that's up to $2,000 to get kids outdoors. So if you're going to do a project that is outdoors, there's 2 or 3 exhibitors who have money to give you to take kids and do the science of their particular kind. And the other thing that hopefully will draw you there is that we're giving away free lab equipment from the Hillsborough DEQ office. There's a bunch of junior high teaching materials coming from the University of Portland's workshops. And then Benson High School in Portland was being remodeled, and Gene Ames is sending over a bunch of Benson High School lab stuff. So hopefully we can see you October 8th in Ridgeville High School in Redmond. And Lori, you want to put that site on the chat?
I just
thing?
did.
Thank you.
Jackie, it looks like you have back to school night right now. Okay, you better go.
Thanks for
Sorry.
coming.
Hey, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Alfonso, it's so good to see you from across the country. And please reach out if you have questions, and hope to get an application from you on. Those of you TOSA people, get the word